My name is Christina der Nederland and I run the Llama Lab here at UTM. Llama stands for Language, Attention, Music, and Audition. So we study everything from music and language to auditory scene analysis questions. These really basic questions about how we listen to sounds in the world around us. Our lab studies music and language, and so I kind of come by it honestly. I play the cello and I sang growing up, and I remember sitting in orchestra in the back row, and we were playing this beautiful piece of music, and the cellos had this really awesome line. And I remember just, having this kind of visceral response from it and thinking, how in the world does that happen? These sound waves come into my ear and then all of a sudden I'm having this kind of emotional response. How does that happen? And so already in high school, I started kind of asking these questions. And anytime teacher or professor would say, okay, you have to write this long paper about something, I always chose music and the brain. And then in undergrad, I realized, oh, actually, this is something that I could study and that I could do for a job. And I thought that was really cool. I took some time off between undergrad and graduate school, and I really did a lot of like data processing and this sort of thing at an awesome place in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's where I'm from originally, where they're called DataWise now, and they do a lot of social science data process and research in the community. And once I got that kind of experience, I realized, man, I love research. This is super fun, and I really want to now pivot to being able to put my research into these questions I've always had about music and language and the brain. So then I went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I studied there for 5 years, and I got a PhD there. And then I really wanted to get some neuroscience pieces in with the music language development psychological work that I had done. And so then I went to Western University and worked with Dr. Jessica Braun there and Dr. Mark Joannis. And these are two people who do music and language studies in their own labs. And then I kind of straddled between the labs and worked in both of those labs doing some questions on music and language and dyslexia while I recorded EEG for kids in the community. After that, I applied for lots of different jobs. You get lots of rejections, but this one happened to stick, and I'm super happy that I got to then start up this lab, the Llama Lab, here at UTM. I guess it's sort of the hardest part, but probably also the best part about doing research is that you set up a study and you're thinking, okay, here are our hypotheses, and I'm sure that our study is designed in such a way that we're going to find this thing that we were anticipating. And then I would say more often than not, that doesn't happen. The data supports a different theory, or the data kind of shows you that, oh, you're asking the question in a way that was interesting, but not the way that you were thinking about it. And so I think that's the hardest part, is that research is slow because it takes a long time to design studies, especially in developmental research, that are engaging for kids and that can kind of answer all of these sorts of questions. But then once you, again, ask that question, sometimes the data doesn't tell you what you think you're going to find. And so that's the hard part, and also kind of the best part about doing research, because it's not about your opinions, it's about what the data says. And then you just follow the path where the data leads, and you keep going and keep asking questions. I think it would probably just be establishing the Llama Lab. I'm just super excited about providing opportunities for students to be able to, participate in research, for us to actually kind of make, new discoveries about music and language in the brain, and understand more about how, kids learn about music and how we can use music to maybe benefit language processing, but also, learning about music for music's sake as well. The ability to provide opportunities for students, for graduate students, for postdocs to ask really interesting questions and to learn more about what research is about. I went to a liberal arts college, which is a 4-year university degree in the United States, and I didn't have a ton of research experience. And so I think that honestly, I would give myself the advice to seek out every research opportunity you could, so that you could be a marketable candidate if you wanted to go to graduate school. And that includes actually coding and programming. So I thought that programming was for nerds, and so I decided I didn't want to do it. But then maybe I am a nerd, and so I should have, reached out and done that, because I had to do a lot of on-the-job training for programming and coding. So I would say that. I think the other thing that I would also tell my undergraduate self is that there are so many different paths that you could be really good at in terms of finding a career. And so sometimes you see a path and you're like, oh, I've got to do that particular thing. I want to be just like this person. But I think what's really neat about a skill set in doing research or data processing or all this kind of stuff is that those skills are translatable to so many different career options. And so I think a lot about how I would have been really happy in a place like, could have done something with sound processing or even like a toy company and see, how can we design toys that really help kids learn or are engaging and fun for kids with music and these sorts of things. Or doing a job like this where I work in a research lab and get to teach other students how to do this sort of research. You don't need to have a perfect path in front of you. You just take the opportunities you're given, you make the best out of them, and then you make choices based on what is interesting to you and what your skill set is as well. I really want to grow this lab and start asking lots of cool questions about music and language in the real world. So behind me here is the booth. It's beautiful and we love the mural, but that's not exactly the real world, right? When you go into like a sound attenuated booth, it's really quiet and we're playing just one sound and it's really easy to hear. It's clear usually. And what's nice about the booth is you can manipulate things. So I can add in a certain amount of noise and make it exactly the same amount of tricky or hard for, all the participants coming into the lab. But that's not exactly how it is in the real world. And so a lot of the work that we're starting to do is with an eye toward actually doing some of this work out in the community. So, going to museums or going to festivals and starting to actually look at these questions about how do you process music and language in these, in the wild, in these situations where there are lots of other unknown factors going on. And how does music maybe help you process language better? How do different sounds in your environment make it easier or harder for you to detect when someone's talking to you or listen to when someone's talking to you? Yeah, so I think moving out into the real world is the big goal for the Llama Lab in the future.